and welcome to the Christmas edition of the Savage NASCAR podcast. I'm Steve Will, aka Savage NASCAR. And today we have a very special guest with us, Taylor Kitchen. Thank you so much for joining the show today. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this episode and some of the topics we're going to discuss. There's a lot that we'll be discussing in this episode. But the first question I got to ask you is a question I ask all the guests that come on my show, and that is, how did you find your interest in racing?
Oh, so I feel like everyone that does like NASCAR YouTube and stuff like that is like a lifelong fan. I started watching like every single race this season in 2017. 2016 was the first year I actually watched a race, and it's all because of my grandma. She's been a fan ever since I can remember. She always had the races on. We weren't allowed to touch the remote to the TV over the weekends. It was her TV. She got to watch NASCAR. And then one day I was really bored. I don't know if it was raining outside or what. And I decided to watch with her, and I got hooked. And then I went to my first race in 2017 at Kentucky Speedway, RIP. And after that, just hearing the sound, smelling the rubber, the gas, it was fantastic. So that's when I really got hooked in. Ever since, here I am, just loving the sport.
That's great. And you know how I got interested in the sport. Obviously, my grandfather was watching NASCAR, and he kind of introduced me to it. So I'd be watching on TV when I was younger too. But now, I guess, talking real quick about social media. You mentioned NASCAR YouTube. You currently you have your channel Above the O Line, and you also work for TobyChristieCom. So can you tell me how you got involved with social media and how you found your interest in content creating?
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of social media. There's like pros and cons to it. I was actually really, really sick a few years ago, and the way I kept in contact with everybody was just kind of through social media. That's kind of where I lived my life through, because I wasn't really able to do much. So that's where I got fully invested. I went on Twitter, I think in 2014, but it really turned NASCAR centric in like 2016, somewhere in there. And it just kind of grew that love since then. That's the only place I really got to talk about NASCAR and my interests and everything like that. And so I started with Twitter. I've always had Instagram, got an Instagram for Above the O Line last year. And then YouTube. I've always loved making videos. I went to college, or I am in college, but I started with my degree in film production. Realized it's not the type of storytelling I wanted to do. I didn't want to really make films. So I switched a few times my degree. Yes. Then I went to journalism, and that's where I really found my love of like making journalistic stories, telling the news, or more so even just translating that over to the sport. So it's kind of how I got into that content creation side of things.
Awesome. And yeah, like some of the content that you have on your channel Above the O Line, obviously a lot of news topics is for sure. Your videos pop up on my feed all the time on Instagram of, oh, this is going on, this was announced, scheduled things. Now with TobyChristie.com, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And I do really enjoy the content that's pushed out on there. I'm a statistics guy. So I like seeing lots of the statistics that are posted, because some of those just blow my mind. I'm like, I didn't know this happened. Like there was one earlier this year where every single driver was running at the end of the race for the first time. And I was like, I didn't know that happened. Like that's pretty cool. So can you tell us a little bit more about TobyChristie.com?
Absolutely. So first off with the stats, Joseph Strigley, he runs all of our stats. Okay. I call him the stat wizard. But I don't know how he finds what he finds. I just know that it takes him hours. Him and Toby just go through like racing reference and everything and look up just the craziest stats and how they find them. Like I said, I don't know, but very they're really good at stats. And I like you, I appreciate learning that just because otherwise I wouldn't have that knowledge. But yeah, with TobyChristie.com, I was brought on in April of this year. I've been a fan of his work for years. That's how I got a lot of my knowledge about the sport and learned a lot. And I got a random DM from him one day in April, and he was like, hey, call me. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's crazy. I don't know what this is about, but I'm excited about it. And when he called, he was like, so what are your goals for the future? And then we kind of talked about that. And he's like, hey, so here's the deal. We'd love to have you as part of the Toby Christie team. I took a bit to think about it just because the channel that I've made is very personal to me. And I was like, do I want to join? Do I not? And it was really a no-brainer. I just got really nervous about the whole thing. But I mean, he's allowed me to keep total creative control. He's allowed me to really grow and learn. And There's incredible resources. Being part of his team, just being able to learn from everybody has been a really big help. So then I joined then, and I'm in charge of most all of the YouTube content, but I really just stick with my channel and I post to his page, and it's been a great experience, and everyone there is so awesome and so talented, really. But it's been a really cool experience so far.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I definitely like I've been watching some of the content over the past couple weeks and months actually, and yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of growth there, and I think that that the content's great and what you bring to the website and to the channel is awesome. So next, I was going to ask real quick, so what's your goals for 2023?
Oh, that's lofty. So for me, going into this year, I should say, myself and my friends who help out with the channel, Adam, Lucas, Don, Joseph, really, when we started this year, and of course the brand has kind of grown since then, but we had the goal of covering like all motorsports, all major motorsports. So like Formula One, IndyCar, ARCA, all the series. We quickly realized that was impossible to do as a small group. So going into this year, I have more real expectations for myself. Really, as I'm going through my last semester of school, the thought process is to just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. I have a new kind of format going into 2023 to keep, the content fresh, to keep people engaged. And even then too, sometimes I love making the content, but sometimes I'm like, I need to make things a little different for myself too. So I'm really excited about what we have going into 2023, and also attending some more races when I can, probably starting in the summer, in the fall. I want to go back to Mid-Ohio. That's a plan. I loved it there. Going to cover ARCA and trucks, and then probably a few more tracks. I'm not going to announce anything yet because I'm not totally sure, but more things in the works as well to cover races, even with SRX potentially. But I guess the goal is just to get out there a little bit more, and to really experience reporting at the track more than I have ever before, because I'll now have the time. So 2023 goals is just getting out there.
That's great. And I mean, yeah, I feel like now since, obviously SRX is going to be going to its third season, if I'm correct. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the races are up north though. So for me being in the South, it's kind of like, man, I can't really go to them. Like, come on, get the one down here. But yeah, SRX, very excited for that. And I've been seeing you post some about their schedule. So while we're on the topic about the SRX schedule, what are some drivers that you think, some new drivers possibly that could be in SRX in 2023, and what's some of the races you're looking forward to?
Obviously, Eldora. I'm from Ohio. I live in Ohio. So that one's exciting for me. I didn't get to go in SRX's first season, so I'm hoping that's the race I can go to this year. Now, as far as drivers, I have a little Kevin Harvick Funko Pop right here. Yeah. He's the guy I'm looking forward to hopefully doing an SRX race. I saw on Twitter, there was like banter between him and the SRX account. And I was like, maybe this means something. They talked about, maybe the New Hampshire race that's happening. Maybe he goes over to the SRX race before that race. So that's what I'm hoping for as far as new drivers. No one else really came to mind, really. I think having Kyle Busch in there, if we're really talking like more Cup Series drivers, would be interesting too. Would he do it though? I don't know. He has a lot on his plate this year. So yeah. I'll just leave that on the table, but that would be interesting.
Yeah, Kyle, he does have a lot on his plate. I mean, he's moving to RCR, which I didn't expect, but after a while, I was thinking it's going to be more of a reality. And his son's racing now too, so he has that to deal with too. So Son races at Millbridge, and I help with the broadcast for Millbridge sometimes at Durbin, and so yeah, I see his name, and I see him running around the track there sometimes. But let's talk real quick. Let's change gears a little bit. So it's Christmas time. Down here, it's currently pouring rain, and it's possible that we get snow. What about up there? Is it snow? Is there possible snow up there? And what are you excited for the Christmas season? What's like some of your favorite Christmas memories?
So right now, I think it's like starting to rain, but we're supposed to get like negative like 20 weather. And
wow.
Yeah, I'm not excited for this at all. And like lots of snow. So if you're traveling, stay safe. But yeah, so Christmas traditions. I mean, my family, my dad loves Christmas. I mean, we're a Christmas family, but he goes all out. We'll go through like Hobby Lobby some years. This year we haven't been able to just because of time, but we'll have to like force him not to buy things because that's just how it is. But I love Christmas. It's a toss up between that and Halloween for me as my favorite holidays. But traditions, we always have like a baking day for my family. I think we're doing that Friday this year, but we bake just a whole bunch of sweets that we can never eat in like time for Christmas, but we make everything anyways. And then just celebrate Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. This year's a little different. We have family members that are going to be traveling and everything. So, but yeah, lots of baking. And then obviously opening gifts and exchanging gifts, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And then I don't know, question for you. Do you keep your Christmas tree up like till New Year's? Do you take it down right away? Like, I'm always curious like what other families do for this.
Well, at my real house, I don't have a Christmas tree, but at my parents' house, we usually keep the Christmas tree up till a little bit after New Year's.
That's the way to go. That's for sure. Yeah. We're the same way, I think. It changes every year, but I think this year it's going away after New Year's.
Facts. Now, let's talk a little bit more about social media again. So you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube. Out of those, which one do you find the fun? There's not such word as funnest, but which one is more exciting?
Oh gosh, so social media is tricky in the fact that every platform, as you probably know, but has a different way of building engagement, followers, and the algorithm for each is totally different, chaotic, depending on what side you are on. So for me, I've seen the most recent growth on TikTok, and I think that's fun. Obviously, with like laws being made and everything, TikTok might not be a thing in the near future, but I don't know. That's probably overdoing it. But I do love Twitter. That's kind of where I've built my brand. That's where I've seen the most growth. Sometimes Twitter is really fun. Some other times it's just filled with negativity and I just got to take a step back, you know? And that's kind of, I guess, as much as I love Twitter, I also dislike it for the fact that there is so much negativity, just based on how the platform is and, you know, changing of the guard with who's in charge now. Like, I have no issue with it, but it's created so much chaos that I'm just like, I just want to do my work, you know? And then Instagram, as much as I love it, it is kind of boring in my opinion. I know they're trying to do different things with like notes on Instagram. I don't know. You've seen that. Like,
yeah, it's odd.
I don't like it at all, but they're trying something different, which I can appreciate. But every social media platform has its perks and its downfalls. But just because, again, it's built a lot of my career, Twitter, YouTube, though, it's always been an interesting platform for me. Obviously, that's where I put my main content, but it's interesting to see how my content does on YouTube versus Facebook. Facebook, a lot of my videos will get over like 1K views. In YouTube, we tend to struggle a little bit view-wise. And I guess you just have to know your audience, and a lot of our audience has been built on Facebook incredibly. So I guess that's another struggle with it too, is, like I said, building engagement on certain places. But yeah. To answer your question, long story short, Twitter, least favorite and most favorite. Absolutely.
Well, I do agree with you with most of that. I mean, with Facebook, like I can relate. Like on Facebook, a lot of my shorts will get over 1,000 views easily. Right. And like some of my NASCAR posts, I'm in a lot of NASCAR groups, they'll get a lot of attention and a lot of interaction. But YouTube sometimes is a hit or miss. Like there's some videos that would do well. Like when I went to North Wilkesboro this year, and maybe a couple of vlogs or just stock car classic stuff. And then if I do something else, like a Christmas tier list,
it just takes
30 views, you know, it just, you know, it changes. So, and another thing, I mean, I think YouTube, since everyone's doing it, it's a lot of people use YouTube now, so obviously it's hard to engage with some people and to have reoccurring subscribers watch your videos again. It's difficult, but then again, I love YouTube. That's probably my favorite platform. But Instagram, Twitter, I don't use Twitter as much as I used to. I just use Twitter for dirt vision and retweet stuff. But now, quick question. So with this past year, with the races that you went to, which one was the most meaningful? Which one was the one that was the most exciting that you went to and got to cover?
Oh, gosh. So I would be an idiot if I didn't say the 600 weekend. So I didn't get to cover that race, or I guess I chose not to. We tried to do every single year with my family, my grandma who got me into the sport, my grandpa. We tried to do like a yearly family vacation to the racetrack before Kentucky Speedway was, not like taken down, but you know what I mean, before it was gone from the schedule. That's where we would go. And this year was the first year we were able to go back to the track. So we went to the 600 because I'd always wanted to go. I had friends in the Charlotte area that I was able to meet. And I was like, you know what, we're doing this as a vacation. And it was like the most amazing time ever. Just the race in itself. I know it was like about 6 hours long, but it felt like 3, in my opinion. It was very exciting, great racing all weekend long. The ARCA race was very interesting, but that's the first ARCA race I've really seen in person. But it was a great weekend, great experiences. The shops, the teams, they really outdid themselves with the events around the track. So, I mean, if you ever have the chance to go. I did love, though, the first race I've ever covered and the only race I really covered this year was at Mid-Ohio. And I loved it so much. I went in thinking I was going to be doing interviews and writing stories, and I did. But my primary focus that weekend was actually photography, which I've never done before. And I went there, learned that was my role, and I had a blast. So just being able to try new things this year, and that track is so fun too. It's so underrated, but it produced some really great racing and trucks in ARCA, and that was really fun to do.
Great stuff. And this year I went to the 600 too, and I went there with my my best friend Tucker. He hadn't been to a race in about 11 years.
Oh my gosh.
That's his first race in 11 years. And it was a blast. And as you mentioned, it was long, but obviously it felt like it was 3. It was just chaotic, but that whole week in general was just great. I mean, they had fan days at different shops. I went to a couple of the museums around the area since I live right outside Charlotte. I was able to do that, but I could still do that. But anyways, yeah. Basically, it was a great week. Was able to meet a lot of people, and Mid-Ohio I always liked Mid-Ohio. I've never been, but it definitely is a really fun road course. But what about Portland though? What do you think about Portland? That race was chaotic, wasn't it?
It was a very chaotic race, but I think I appreciated that because of that. I don't know. My God, that race is escaping my brain. I just remember like being on social media that day because I couldn't like watch the race, but I was hearing and I was seeing clips of everything that was happening. And I was like, oh my gosh, this will be a fun race in the future. So I don't know. We'll have to see. But that was a very interesting race from what I remember. Do I want it to be as chaotic in the future? Probably not. I'd like something a little bit more tame for Portland, but nevertheless, exciting.
Given obviously, you mentioned you're doing photos at Mid-Ohio. With 2023, do you know if they're going to be having you doing photography and videography, or are you going to be doing more of the reporting side?
That's a good question. I really don't know. I actually just got a camera. It's like sitting on my right here. And I've been saving up for it forever, and it takes really nice photos. And I'm like, I'd like to kind of dabble into that. Just for me, I want to be able to be really good at everything, journalistically, video, photo, obviously writing stories, putting together packages. And I feel like through my education and just through even just learning a lot of this myself, I'm getting there. I will say anyone makes mistakes. I'm not a perfect person. I will misspeak just like that, words. Or I might mess up editing something or whatever, but just over time, just being able to learn. I think I would like to focus a little bit more on reporting. I'm pushing myself in that direction. I love putting together videos and putting together photos, but surprisingly, where I feel like I have the most struggle is putting together really solid stories. I can do the interviews, I can set them up, but when I go to actually write a piece, that's where my brain just decides to lock up and just not do anything. So being able to push myself that way in 2023 would be awesome. But I do have videography opportunities next year. I actually work for Austin Terrio, ARCA champion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like I do his marketing and like digital media. Working on that side of things has been really interesting, just because I'm doing some marketing classes with my college, but that hasn't been my primary focus through my education or just kind of what I thought of career-wise. And it's opened my eyes to different opportunities, exciting opportunities, and I might have the chance to go myself to videography for his drivers as I run their social media accounts. Usually we've been contracting out videographers, so it'll be nice to actually go when I have the time to do that. So I will get to do some video work in 2023, which I'm really excited for. So I can't wait.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And yeah, I mean, Arca, I don't really follow Arca that much, but I think definitely having more media attention for Arca, it's
Yes.
great. I know there's I mean, you cover Arca, but there's some other people. One guy on YouTube, I don't remember his channel name off the top of my head, but he has an Arca like YouTube channel, and he does a lot of like Arca throwback stuff and Arca podcasts. But shout out him. I don't remember his name, but I'll put him up on the screen probably. But anyway, so with videography, I actually started doing that about a year and a half ago. And I videoed at Wilkesboro this year when Junior went there, and for stock car classics, which is becoming a really huge thing around the Carolinas.
Oh, yeah.
Stock car classics is, and yeah, I've such a blast filming with that group, and have made a lot of friends through that. But enough about me. Eldora, have you ever been to a World of Outlaws event at Eldora?
No. So the only races I've attended are like the NASCAR, like Cup Series, Xfinity, and trucks.
Okay.
I have never done like short track racing. I've never gone to like other events like that, or even just World of Outlaws, just because of how I don't want to say how new I am to the sport, but mostly my time. I've been a full-time student. I work 2 jobs. It's hard for me to get out and travel just because of my illness. It's hard to travel. But like that's my goal. Like once I'm like done with school, is just to go experience these races, these short track events, these local events. I feel like Dale Jr. doing a great job bringing back some of these events and bringing them back to full scale. Just short track racing and
Definitely.
hometown racing is so important to so many people, and I want to be able to experience that and understand it. So a lot of learning to do, but I have not been able to go, unfortunately. But I really want to. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting to see a lot of this stuff. Like, I mean, Rockingham just got paved, and I was able to
Yes.
go to Rockingham this year a couple times, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for that track. And of course, Wilkesboro with the All Star race, that's going to be fun.
Oh yeah.
Very pricey, but it's going to be fun. um, but I guess now let's talk a little bit about some off season news. Now we're on the topic about some stuff going on. The Chicago Street Course. I'm not a fan of it. Obviously it's on the 2023 schedule. What's your thoughts on it?
Oh gosh. So I'm taking the same approach with this as I took with the Bristol Dirt Race. Is I was not a fan of it. However, I wasn't gonna like totally bash it until we tried it.
Yeah.
The Chicago Street Course, I do not think will work well with these cars that we have. Obviously, street course racing, we see them having like the slender cars, the fast cars. Like, I mean, like Formula One IndyCar, just coming to my brain, street courses, right?
Yeah.
When we think of NASCAR, we think of ovals and maybe road courses, but street courses, there's going to be no passing going on. That's just what I'm predicting is going to happen. So my preconceived notion is that it's not going to go well. But I'm going to hold off on really giving a full opinion until we actually see it, because I could be very wrong. The Bristol Dirt Race, I did not like the first year. The second year, I think NASCAR did a really good job adjusting. We learned from our mistakes a little bit, and we made a better product. Obviously, we couldn't control the weather, but I think we'll have to learn a lot after this year. I don't think this year is going to be perfect at all, good at all. But next year, I guess 2024 is what I mean. We will see. So not a fan of it, kind of like you, but I don't want to say optimistic. I'm curious about how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You worded that well, and I think that it can be a chaotic race. I hope everything goes well for it. I just don't see it being great, and they're obviously going to have a lot more security up there.
Oh yeah,
but. But the Bristol Dirt Race, yeah, the second time around was way better than the first time around. First time, obviously, you couldn't see hardly anything. Second time, I went there with my grandfather for the one this year, and it was much more well managed, and they were more prepared for sure. Now another topic that I was thinking of was Hailie Deegan. She's going to ThorSport Racing. I think she would run better there. I don't really know much about which car she's driving off the top of my head. But I'm sure you know. Can you tell us more about that and what you think is going to happen with that team moving forward?
Yeah, so my brain is telling me 13, and I'm thinking that's wrong. So don't quote me on that. But I'm excited for this opportunity for her. Obviously, her past few years in the truck series have not been, I think, what we all were hoping for her. They've
Hmm.
kind of been lackluster, and that's not what I want for her. I don't think that's what any of us want for her. We want her to succeed. And for me, I think being part of ThorSport will give her that best chance. And in my opinion, I've said this many times before, but if she's not successful this year, or I would say, well, 2023 to 2024, if she's not successful those 2 years with this team, I want to say that she's a NASCAR bust. I really don't want her to be,
Hmm.
but this is her best chance to be successful with
Yeah.
champions on this team. She has really good guidance. Their equipment is fantastic. I mean, we've had them in the championship for a few years now, and in a row, I guess. So I want her to do well. For me, I guess reasonable expectations. Obviously, hoping that she has more top tens than she did last year, which off the top of my head, I can't remember the stats for that, but it was not what we wanted. Do I think she's going to have a win? No.
Hmm.
If she has a win, that'll be fantastic. But I think what's going to be key for her is managing her expectations and that team managing expectations, which I think they will, but it's really not letting the hype go to their heads. And I think she'll be successful if they just kind of keep their heads down and just work it out.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that with the truck series, it's I don't know if I would say I think she'd do better in Xfinity than truck, but I feel like that could be the case because
I
trucks
would
are
agree.
definitely different than ARCA and Xfinity cars and Cup cars, obviously. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well she does with that team. Um, Now, before we get to the end of the episode, there's a couple more questions I have. One of them being, of all the drivers you've met and have, say, for instance, even interviewed, which one stuck out the most?
Oh God, I have a story. So Matt DiBenedetto, I met him in Ohio, and I met him the first day I was at the track. So I would say, oh God, was this a Friday or a Thursday? It was one of those days. And literally, I was just walking through the garage area. My friend Casey Campbell, he's like the ARCA guy. He learned, I mean, he taught me a lot about, ARCA that day. And then he walked me through the garage and he's like, hey, Taylor, this is Matt. And Matt just like took like 5 minutes. He was really busy,
Yeah.
but just asked me about how I was doing. Like, this was the first race I was covering, and just got to talk to me, which was fantastic. And then that day I was like, hey, to his PR rep, Monty, I believe. I was like, hey, can I interview him like tomorrow? He's like, yeah, we're going to be a little busy, but talk to me tomorrow. We'll do it. So next day I went up to him during the driver autograph session, Monty, and I was like, hey, does Matt have time to talk? And he's like, it's going to be a tight schedule between here. We're going to be walking to our trailer. Can you walk with us and interview him? I'm like, yeah, sure. No, like totally fine. Well, after the driver's session, basically Matt was getting on a golf cart and Monty's like, come on, sit next to him, go. And I'm like, okay, great. So Matt DiBenedetto and I are like, this is my water bottle. We're like this close. And I'm interviewing him, and we had like we had another race going on the track, and it was really loud. And if you listen to the audio on the interview, it's garbage. But the fact that Matt was just willing to talk in that chaotic moment was fantastic. Then afterwards, we talked about our dogs, and he showed me pictures of his dogs, and it was like the
Oh,
coolest thing ever. Like genuinely like one of the sweetest guys. Like that was like probably the coolest driver interaction I've ever had in terms of like actually interviewing a driver and even just meeting a driver. I mean, just I don't know, you hear a lot of things about drivers in media and everything, and I came in with an open mind, and he quite honestly the favorite driver I've ever met. So cool, so genuine, and I really appreciated his time because it was busy that day. So but that was like the coolest thing from that weekend. I came home and I was like, Mom. So it was awesome.
yeah, that's great. And Matt's definitely one of the nicest guys in the sport for sure.
Absolutely.
Um, Now with social media, have you had any odd interactions with fans on social media? Is there any that are just annoying or just do you have
Oh,
any funny stories of that?
well, I don't. Being a woman in motorsports is interesting. You either get the really harsh reactions of I don't want to hear a woman talking about motorsports, or you get the people that want to hear more personal things and you're willing to share. For
Ah,
lack of
gotcha.
better words, I've gotten some really weird interactions both ways. The most recent one was on Facebook, and a guy basically told me like the words that I was saying were vomit, and that I should stay in the kitchen. I posted this all on Twitter. Yeah, well, my comeback to that was my last name's Kitchen, so technically I'm already in the kitchen, so you can't really use that. But like, it's wild, and for me, that was just somebody clearly kind of maybe stuck in their ways, stuck in the past, and I'm like that. I just shrug off my shoulders. I just laugh about it. I mean, was it hurtful in the moment? Yeah, but I'm like, if you don't like the content, and this is what I always preach to anybody, and any content creator should, is if you don't like the content, there's thousands of others doing the same type of thing. It's just a matter of if you want to hear it from me or if you want to hear it from somebody else. And fortunately, as you could say fortunately too, there's a lot of people out there that like our content and want to listen to us and are there because of our personality, what we deliver, the team that we're part of. But there's some comments out there that I'm like, great, you can go somewhere else respectfully. I appreciate you giving me a chance, but you don't have to leave the hurtful comments. It's counterproductive. Constructive feedback I'm always open to. Obviously, like I want to grow, I want to get better. So if you have constructive and helpful feedback, sure. But if it's just deconstructive, I'm like, you're fine. Now, the weird comments in the DMs, I won't disclose, but they happen more frequently than I'd like. Obviously, though, as the years go by, I'm sure they'll get worse. And I respect the other female journalists or female drivers in the sport because I'm sure theirs is like a million times worse, like their DMs than mine. But yeah, it's difficult to deal with that. But I mean, at this point, I'm so open to having people talk to me and like reach out to me because I want to get to learn other people's stories and talk to them. And I've had so many people, I'm very fortunate, that just reached out to me about like family issues or personal issues that they're struggling with, felt comfortable confiding in me or other people that I've met on Twitter. So I'm always wanting to have my DMs open for that. But if it's something that I realize is a little sketchy at first, I'll delete it right away. I've gotten to that point. It's just not worth it. It's gotten really crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. And unfortunately, with social media, there could be a dark side to it. And obviously, people just don't know what to think before they type. And they just, some people are just outrageous, unfortunately. But that's also a thing with being in social media and being someone who's an influencer. Obviously, there's going to be people that can be harsh to you. And I've seen a lot of toxic behavior on Instagram more than anything, and Twitter more than anything. When you were starting to make content, was there anyone you looked up to and looked at? It was like, okay, is it this someone that I guess helped you or influenced you in a way?
Really? Like, not necessarily. I really started creating the content because I wanted someone to talk to. And I feel like we all kind of grew up watching like Eric Estep and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, if he's doing something like that, like I can talk about NASCAR too. And, not necessarily, I would say like was an influence in a way, but I was like, okay, so there's other people out there doing this. So I guess that means that I have permission to. So, I thought about this podcast, I guess now at this point, 4 years ago, kind of like, I guess 2017, really, just thinking about, I don't know any other females that are interested in the sport. At the time, I wasn't friends with anyone. I'm from a really small town that doesn't talk about racing at all. And I was like, no one's here to talk. So really the inspiration came from me just wanting to have a conversation with other people passionate about the sport and for newer fans. I don't know a lot about the history as much as I think I should. There's a lot of local racing that I don't know about, and I'm not shy about it. I think the worst thing that you can do as a content creator is lie to your viewers and pretend to know more than you do. I work between my two jobs, like maybe like 30, 40 hours a week, researching graphics, editing, filming. Like I am a one-person production here. But the majority of my time is spent researching because I want to make sure I'm doing things right. Like I mentioned earlier, though, there's always room for error, room for mistakes, but you learn from them. But inspiration is just being able to connect with others, I would say. And then my dad helped me actually come up with the name of the show. So that's also very special too. So
that's great. And wow, I don't really know what else to say, but as we close off the episode, we're reaching to the checkered flag here. Is there anything you would like to say before we close the episode out?
Well, just thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit about my story. Anyone who's watching, taking the time to listen, hear me talk. I really appreciate it. And just, I guess if anyone else wants to make content, I would just say go for it. There's always going to be somebody who wants to listen to your story, listen to your experience, hear your content. If you have a passion for it, there should be nothing stopping you. You should just go. If you have a camera, if you don't have a camera, you don't have a microphone, your phone is perfect. Like use the resources you have and go for it.
Definitely. And that is a great thing to say. And definitely go for it. For those watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Taylor, for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it. And of course, you could go follow her. You'll see on the screen or in the description below. Make sure to go follow her on all her platforms. Now, yeah, this Merry Christmas, everybody. This has been the Christmas episode of the Savage SR podcast. And until next time, have a happy holidays, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Peace.